This video is brought to you by Captivating History. Sparta was a famed ancient Greek city-state that managed to etch its name in history through its military achievements and highly militaristic society. In a time when fine soldiers and superior tactics were the keys to success, Sparta emerged on top of all of its neighbors, dominating them for several centuries. As time progressed, however, many of its defining features would prove to be the instruments of its downfall. A rigorous military oligarchy, Sparta's extremely introverted society, and the failure to adapt to the changing landscapes of war in ancient Greece ultimately led to a slow and decisive downfall. The classical period of ancient Greece was defined by a multitude of powerful and often rivaling city-states. To remain in power, these cities usually had to rely on a high-quality army and superior battle tactics, exactly what Sparta had. Dominating the fertile valleys of the Eurotas River on the central peninsula of Peloponnesus, it perfected its army to an obsessively high standard. It became, without a doubt, the greatest military power of ancient Greece. For centuries, its army was undefeated in battle, and the iconic Spartan hoplite warrior was a symbol of excellence in warfare. Many historians agree that the downfall of Sparta actually began centuries before it would come to pass, and that is due to its unique and very strict society. In almost all ways, Sparta was a totalitarian state. The government controlled and overlooked many aspects of the lives of Spartan citizens. A well-defined social hierarchy that placed enormous emphasis on birthrights would essentially undermine Sparta in the long run. At the bottom were the helots, a caste of state-owned enslaved serfs with no rights. Perioeci were the caste of free, non-Spartan citizens who were usually craftsmen and traders and held no real power. And at the very top, ruling over them, were the Spartiates, full-blooded Spartan citizens that dominated every aspect of life, from politics to the laws. Such a social hierarchy was constricting to the Spartans, always limiting the number of their citizens and lowering their prospects of expansion. The life of a Spartan citizen was oriented towards war and almost nothing else. The strict and demanding agoge education system was mandatory for all male citizens and trained them to be warriors from an early age. Exposed to extreme hardships and toil from early childhood, a Spartan warrior grew up to be a fearsome opponent. Numerous historical accounts tell us that even the sight of an advancing hoplite line was enough to send enemies fleeing. Over time, Sparta boasted the finest military in Greece, enhanced by its ability to swiftly move over terrain, perform complex tactical maneuvers, and utilize sudden and shocking final charges. By 650 BC, Spartan dominance was fully established. In the Second Mycenaean War, which lasted from 660 BC to 650 BC, the Spartans faced a rival state of Messenia, which it decisively defeated, solidifying its fearsome reputation. A few generations later, during the Second Persian invasion of Greece, this reputation was put to a major test in the legendary Battle of Thermopylae. Here, a force of 300 Spartans and a few hundred of their allies confronted a much greater Persian force. Faced with certain death, the Spartans refused to yield. Instead, they fought to their last breaths. This feat made the Spartan soldiers indeed the stuff of legends. In the centuries that followed, Sparta was involved in a lengthy conflict with its neighbors. During the Peloponnesian War, Athens, Thebes, Sparta, and the Persians were vying for power over Greece. Sparta was at the head of the Peloponnesian League and faced its ancestral rival, Athens, which headed the Delian League. This drawn-out war lasted from 431 BC to 404 BC and fundamentally reshaped the ancient Greek world. Split into three distinct phases, the clash began with repeated Spartan invasions of the Attic Peninsula. Athens, a powerful naval hegemony, utilized its enormous fleet in response. It raided the coasts of Peloponnese. The conflict dragged on for years with intermittent breaks, but saw a significant change in 415 BC, when the Athenians suffered a catastrophic defeat after their failed naval military expedition to Syracuse in Sicily. This turned the tables and severely weakened Athens, beginning the final phase of the Peloponnesian War. Sparta, seeking to take advantage of the Athenian weakness, relied on the support of the Persian Achaemenid Empire to deliver one final blow to their enemy. In 405 BC, Spartan Admiral Lysander crushed the Athenian navy at the famous Battle of Aegospotami. Following this victory, Sparta grew in power, subduing many of the lesser Greek polities and expanding east into Persian provinces. But as history often teaches us, this dominance was not to last long. Just a few years after their victory in the Peloponnesian War, the Spartans faced a new enemy, the coalition of Athens, Thebes, Argos, and Corinth, city-states that sought to curb Spartan power. The Persians backed the coalition, who now feared that the Spartans would further invade their territories. The ensuing conflict is known as the Corinthian War and lasted from 395 BC to 387 BC. After years of inconclusive fighting, a peace treaty was finally established, ending the war. It was, however, unfavorable for the Spartans, whose hegemony was still under threat in Greece. Soon after, a catastrophic defeat would finally usher in the imminent downfall of Sparta. In the conflicts that raged following the Corinthian War, the Spartan army faced the city-state of Thebes, which was at the head of an army of the Boeotian League. At the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, the Theban general Epaminondas exploited his enemy's weaknesses and utilized fresh battle tactics. The Spartans, whose failure to adapt to the changing methods of warfare was apparent by that time, suffered a severe defeat. This was the first time that a full-strength Spartan army was crushed in a land battle. Although it would never be the same, Sparta remained independent for the following 2 centuries, although gradually losing importance and power. Leuctra was the event that finally brought all of its imperfections to the surface and started its long decline. Many Greek historians did not fail to see these imperfections and were the first to point out the paradoxical character of Sparta. On one hand, it was considered, in many ways, to be the perfect embodiment of those ideal Greek values. It prided itself on bravery, military prowess, honest and wise speech, and commendable civic duties. But it was also an unstable and confused society, often brittle and self-deluded, full of pride and unwaveringly stubborn. Due to its strict social hierarchy and an emphasis on birthright, Sparta always limited the number of its citizens. Its core strength existed only due to its highly introverted and conservative society, which itself was functioning as several mutually hostile castes. It was a social structure doomed from the start. Sparta and its contemporaries always knew the full-blooded ruling Spartan citizens were a minority within their own city-state. The population of oppressed servants, the helots, were always a majority in Sparta and were kept under control only through the army. In the end, however, Sparta was succumbing to the constraints of its society. Once the iconic warrior state, it simply could not produce enough warriors to remain in power. In many ways, it was that strict, stubborn, and conservative culture that dragged Sparta and its citizens down. They were the victims of their own ideology. In the ages that followed, Sparta slowly passed over into legend and ancient history. Nevertheless, their stubbornness and pride remained with the people, most notably seen when they refused to join the Pan-Greek League of Philip of Macedon. They did so because they didn't believe in leadership that was not Spartan. After the Roman conquest of Greece in 146 BC, Spartan loss of political independence was final. Its long decline continued steadily as it lost all influence in the region. By the Middle Ages, the city was largely abandoned, with only a meager population living amongst the ruins of ancient Sparta. The downfall of this once magnificent Greek city-state can teach us many important lessons, both in life and history. The fate of Sparta clearly shows that a fully militaristic, authoritarian society cannot survive solely through its powerful army. A state whose economy depends on oppressed servants is bound to be gone before its time. And with Sparta, that's exactly what transpired. To learn more about the fall of Sparta, check out our book, Sparta, A Captivating Guide to the Spartans, Greco-Persian Wars, Battle of Thermopylae, and Peloponnesian War. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, grab your free mythology bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.